Hello, my name is Tim Ternes, and I am the director of the St. John's Bible at St. John's Abbey University in Collegeville, Minnesota. Most of my work deals with the care, conservation, and exhibition of the original manuscript pages of the St. John's Bible, but I have a great deal of experience in caring for and sharing the Heritage Edition volumes with audiences around the world. This video will give you some tips and pointers on using and caring for the volumes in your own setting. When it comes time to store the volumes, the best option for long-term storage of the Heritage Edition volumes is to store them flat in their own boxes on a single shelf. Place the volume in the box with the spine at the center and close the box. One thing you should avoid is stacking the volumes on a shelf. By stacking the volumes, you are taking the weight from one volume and transferring it to the bottom, to the volume beneath it. So this poor volume down here is getting all the cumulative weight of these two volumes. You shouldn't stack them on top of each other. If possible, stack each one on its own shelf. If you are forced into a situation where you need to stack the volumes vertically, you should not stack them this way. You should remember this is the spine, and by putting it this way, all the weight of the text block is pulling down on the binding stitches. You should always store the volumes, if vertically, with the spine down. This way, all the weight will be transferred to the bottom, and it won't be placing any undue stress on the stitches. These volumes were designed with a very special edge. The Heritage Edition volumes feature a yap edge binding. Now this limp, flexible edge has been around since the 19th century, and over time it's designed to slowly close and protect the text block underneath. So if you notice that the edges are closing from use, that's a very good thing. One thing you'll notice is that I'm handling the book with my bare hands. This is a good thing. Many people think you should use gloves to handle any works of paper. Gloves should not be used in any form with any kind of paper except for photograph paper, because there you have a chemical reaction. You can do far more damage to a book by using gloves than you can but with just the oils and soil on your hand. If you use gloves, it's almost impossible to turn the pages without damaging the fibers. You can get a few pages at one time, or you might actually crimp them. And crimping them is one of the worst things you can possibly do. Just put gloves on sometime and try to carefully turn the pages of a book. You lose all tactile sensation. The best thing to use is simply soap and water, and wash and dry your hands carefully, and then handle the book with bare hands. You should avoid using any hand sanitizers or wipes, because these often have chemical moisturizers and can leave a residue on the page. Again, soap and water is the absolute best with your dry, bare hands. The pages of the Heritage Edition volumes are large and should be supported when turning the pages. Turn the pages one or two at a time and lift from the corners of the page and then support the center. This will help turn the pages gracefully and easily and let the weight of the page fall with it naturally. One thing you should avoid is lifting up the pages and fanning them like this. Fanning them like this to find a certain particular illumination may be easy when you're sharing with an audience, but it's not very good for the book itself. The fanning of them can cause dimpling and can cause crimping, which over time will damage the fibers in that particular spot, and they will break down and become a hole. A trained conservator can fix a tear in a volume and can even remove soil, but a dimple is there for the life of the book. While dimples may be attractive on faces, they're not on paper. As I'm sure you have noticed, the Heritage Edition volumes are large and heavy, and these things need to be considered when planning a display of volume for a long or short period of time. The key to careful display is to limit the amount of stress that is placed on the binding itself. The structures of the book are designed to help it last for a long time. Too sharp of an angle places undue stress on the binding structure and will cause them to fail. Think of your own body. If you pick up a heavy object and hold it for a long time, after a while your muscles start to ache, and you need to put the object down before you fail. Well, it's the same thing for a book's binding points. The primary stress points are the headband, the tops and bottoms, and every one of these little areas here where the binding stitches are actually holding the text block to the spine. The sharper the angle, the more stress. I always recommend nothing more than a 15-degree angle when displaying the volume for a long period of time. Now, many people have noticed that in the St. John's Bible Gallery on our campus, the pages are displayed almost upright at a very high angle, almost 90 degrees. Well, this is because we are displaying the original manuscript, which is not yet bound. We have no binding structure to watch for and nothing that's going to place stress. So we simply take the pages and wrap them around forms. So a single page without any binding stress can be displayed at a much higher angle. The angle used in the St. John's Bible Gallery is not appropriate for the bound Heritage Edition volumes. Again, a 15-degree angle is allowable for longer-term display of a single volume. There are various ways to support the volumes, but one thing you should avoid is a full 180-degree flat display of any book. Once again, this will place stress on the binding stitches at this point of the volume. The stand you received with the Heritage Edition volumes is wonderful for use when sharing the volumes with a large audience. They make it accessible and support it nicely so that you can open the book and turn the pages for guests. But these stands are fine for short-term temporary use, but they should not be used for any long-term display. Long-term display requires the support of the full size of the manuscript at the proper opening angle. This only supports these here, which puts stress on this part of the book over time. For long-term display and even short-term sharing, we use a Clarkson book mount at St. John's. This particular mount is made of a foam pillow set that creates a perfect bed to support the entire volume on display. This is excellent for long-term display. You'll notice that the entire book is supported by a full pillow. You open this up, it doesn't allow you to go 180 degrees, but it allows you to have a nice full support. If you would need to, you could support this at an angle as well. Some places would like to design an acrylic mount. We don't use acrylic mounts for our books of this size, but something like this could easily be designed and made specifically to fit the size of the volume itself. This would also be an appropriate way to display the volume, and you could have the ends angled for a nice 15-degree long-term display. Remember, the book will tell you itself how far it wants to open. Sometimes people use large pillows that can also be used to support a volume. Once again, allow the volume to tell you how far it wants to open. The St. John's Bible was meant to be shared, and you are encouraged to get the books off the shelves and make them accessible to people. Now you can decide if you want guests turning the pages on their own, or if you only want to allow trained hosts to turn the pages for you. At St. John's, I encourage guests to interact with the books and turn the pages on their own. Guests are naturally curious about the volumes, and they simply require a few simple reminders and training. As I prepare to share a volume with a group of people, I always keep a few simple things in mind. Number one, have a large table. You want the table to be able to support the books, the size of the book, but you also want some space between you and the edge of between the volume and the edge of the table so that people are not right up to the edge. When a guest arrives, the first thing I always remind them is, please make sure you've washed your hands. Just soap and water is all you need, and they're nice and dry. Then I show them how to handle the book. You want to turn the page carefully by lifting up the corners and turning the pages one or two at a time. Why don't you start turning some pages, Jess? As Jess picks up the pages, I watch. As she leans in and looks at things, I look for, are her buttons, is her clothing coming in contact? Does she have any jewelry that could reach down and catch a page when she lifts back up and could tear it? Or a long scarf? With those simple things in mind and watching for those things, you can have your guests turning the pages and interacting with them. Just stay by and keep an eye on things as you go all the way through. Jess is wearing a bracelet. I would be watching that as she turns pages to make sure it does not come in contact with the pages as well. Sometimes I even remove my own jacket so that I am not catching my sleeves on the pages turning the volumes forward. As Jess turns the pages, she can spend time on her own enjoying the pages and looking and talking about the book with other people. So remember, with a little care and careful planning, the volumes will last a long time. And the most damaging thing you can do to the Heritage Edition is not to use it. So get it off the shelf and get it out of its case. Share it with as many people as possible. Use it and encourage others to share it as well. With a little common sense, a little planning, these volumes will last for centuries. So enjoy.